Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I will be discussing my family tree and actually breaking it down. Reason being, some months back, I filed a complaint in regards to the heir property that me and my family are associated with. There's still individuals that claim to be heirs of property, don't want to comply with the order that was signed that quite entitled to the property. So if you see my other videos, you may know what I'm talking about. If not, I'll leave those video descriptions or the links to those videos in the description below so you can click on those links to watch the videos at a later time. But for those that do know, I talked about my experience in dealing with heir property as well as being a plaintiff in the heir property and try to resolve the legal issues and the management issues of the heir property. So, I brought forth this complaint. So there's individuals that are still claiming to be heirs of property. So I want to break down my family tree and prove that, one, I know what I'm talking about. Two, to show that what I discovered in my family tree. And three, to really prove them wrong, so to speak, because I received a text message after one individual was served a complaint claiming that I don't have the capability or don't even know how to prove that I'm a true heir to the property, true heir to one of the original owners, which is my second great grandfather, Washington James. So I'm gonna take this time to debunk that theory, debunk that fact, and actually prove that I've done my research. I know what I'm talking about, and not only me, my family has done it before me. So without further ado, let's get into the video. Okay, so first I want to show you this message that I received from one of the individual's children that will serve the complaint in regards to the heir property. Um, and it reads as follows: I don't know where you're getting your false information or who has been telling you lies, but you're only making a fool of yourself. You can't even prove you are a true heir. There it is. So they challenging me that I don't know what I'm talking about, that I don't have the capability of proving that I'm a true heir to property. And my family's already done the research. I've talked to my members of my family, my late grandmother, her children, cousins, even my mother has information. They know who's who of the family. And members of my family, my mother's siblings, sisters, two of her sisters, which are my aunts, contacted family on both sides of the family tree, on my grandfather's side and my grandmother's side, to get information about the family, to build out the family tree. And you see my other videos, you know what I'm talking about. I broke it down. So anyway, continue on. If Wash James only had children by Martha Samuels, which is not true, then that would mean you are all Samuels. True to some extent, yes, but it would mean that we're Samuels, that his children by Martha Samuels will be Samuels and a James, right? I'm not a James. I'm not a Samuel. I'm by way of my mother, who was a James and married my father. But granted, I couldn't say that Martha Samuels is uh, my my grandfather's grandmother, which would make it my great great grandmother. I'm not disputing that. But the fact of the matter is, this is about heir property, tracing your lineage back to the original owners, which was Washington James, not Martha Samuels. And Martha Samuels was not a owner, a co-owner of this property. She was not married to Washington James. He was already married to another woman, another lady. And I'll show that as I discuss my family tree, as I break down my family tree. But there's a nutshell. She challenged me. This person challenged me as to me not being able to prove that I'm a true heir to the property. So challenge accepted. So let's get into it. Let me break it down and show you what my family know and what I discovered and what I know. I'm not sure they know, but they soon will find out. So let's get into it. Okay, here it is. I'm gonna pull up my family tree that I created. As you see, I actually discovered or actually built out my family tree using the search engine familysearch.org, which is a good website to use or database to use. And if you want to build out your family tree, discover who your ancestors are, your lineage, build out your family tree for whatever reason, right? This is free of charge. Like you can go to familysearch.org and it does not cost me anything to have an account to do the research, but we can get to later. Okay, so here it is. at top of the screen there, you see my family tree, Washington James and Toby Cox. Again, these are two individuals that are on an original deeds of property. There was two deeds to property for Track A and Track B. Now, Washington James is on my grandfather's side, and Toby Cox is on my grandmother's side. So, and I built this out in PowerPoint. It's a slideshow in PowerPoint, but again, this is a screenshot that I've taken from familyhistory.org showing my family tree. So this is something I just didn't put together and make up. There's actually documentation that I used to do the research and built this out within the familyhistory.org database. Okay, so here it is. So my third great-great-grandfather, now this is on my grandmother's side, Toby Cox, or as he written down on the census report, Tobias Cox. There's different variations of his name, but you can see that he's my third great-grandfather on my grandmother's side. Okay, and next up is these two individuals, again, focusing on Washington James and Toby Cox, but Washington James is my second great-grandfather. And then there you see right there in the green box, now I'm talking about the top of the screen here, is Martha Samuel. Again, he was not married to Martha Samuel. They were not married. She was a mistress, last name Samuel. So when she had the children of Washington James, yes, they bore her name of last name of Samuel, but they are from Washington James, and there's documented evidence to prove that. I'm just not just making this stuff up. My family's just not making it up. There's actually, historical documents, and I'll get into that later. But again, now for following the lineage down on my grandmother's side from Toby Cox, there's Sammy Cox, which is my second great grandfather. Again, so this will be my grandmother's grandfather, and he was married to Sarah James. So the next in line is my great great grandparents. So Jimmy James, again, one of the children of Washington James, the relationship between Washington James and Martha Samuel, again, not married, his mistress nonetheless, but she had children by him. So Jimmy James is one of his 7 children, from Martha Samuel, that is, married to Oliver Floyd, and then continuing the lineage for Toby Cox, my grandmother's side. Sammy Cox had one of his children named Goldie Cox. She married a man named Edward Brown, Edward Brown. So Goldie Cox is my great grandmother, right? So Jimmy James, great grandfather, Goldie Cox, great grandmother. So this is where my grandparents come in, my mother's parents, who are now both deceased. But so from there is my grandfather, Jake James Sr. Again, this is the son of one of the children of Jimmy James, who is the grandson, one of the grandchildren of Washington James, right? My grandmother, Hattie Brown, again. So she's my grandmother. She is she's essentially the grandchild, one of the grandchildren of Sammy Cox, but a great grandchild of Toby Cox. And then here's where I come in, right? So my mother married my father, of course. My mother now is essentially on both sides of the family tree because of her parents, my grandparents. She is the the great granddaughter. I'll say, is it great granddaughter? Yeah, great granddaughter of Washington James, and let's count as like the great granddaughter of Toby Cox. And then there's me right there. So again, I didn't make this up. This is something that I just, put together and created, out of thin air. This is actually documented evidence. This is from me talking to members of my family, my late grandmother and my mother and her siblings, my aunts, uncles, and cousins, and those that know the family tree because, again, they lived it. they live this. They know who Jimmy James is. They met Jimmy James. Jimmy James, which is my great grandfather, was died in 1978, and I was 2 years old. The same thing went along with Simon Cox. I didn't meet Simon Cox. He knew me as a baby, but died around the same time, 1978. I was 2 years old. I was 2 years old. So, now, granted, I know my grandparents. I know my great grandmother, Belle Floyd. Um, I've met Goldie Cox when I was a young boy. I didn't meet Edward Brown, not that I'm aware of, but my family members, my mother, her siblings, and my her cousins, and everyone else know who these people are. Know that they can trace their lineage back to the original owners. Again, it's not me just making stuff up. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to um, get into actually showing you on the family familysearch.org, familysearch.org website to show you how I discovered my family tree using the search engine. Okay, so here I am. I'm in the actual website, familysearch.org. Again, this is a free account. You can create your account, and it will not cost you a monthly subscription to be a part of or to join familysearch.org if you want to trace your lineage back to your great grandparents or whoever in your family tree. So, nonetheless, here it is, just to show that I'm not making this up, that this is actually in the website. You see it, I'm scrolling up and down. You see there is the icon right there, family search, right? At the icon, there's my account, right? This is me. This is me within the actual database, not a screenshot. I'm scrolling up and down. So now I want to show you how I conducted the research to discover or to build out my family tree. So you come here to search the records. You take it to the screen here, and then you can type in the names. See, you can see that I've been already searching my family tree here, Marion County, South Carolina. I'm gonna hit search. It's gonna come up with these names here. Let me move this over a little bit in case I need to. Okay. So there it is, the different names, and you just scroll through till you get to um, a search result that you believe to be the correct one. There could be different variations of people's names, but for Washington James, and I know who his wife was at the time. So let's start here at the, actually, let's see if I can get to the 1870 census, showing that here it is, Washington James in 1870. So let me click on this one here. Um, as you can see that you come on the right side of the screen, um, it gives a name, right? Washington James, sex male, age 43, event date 1870, the location, the event type. This is off of the census report. So in 1870, and then you see other people that are in the report. That's within the same line or same block under the, because they go by the head of the household. But so Washington James being the head of the household, he was married to Cecilia James and his son Charles James, which I will show you that in a later part of this video, that I can actually trace my family tree back to them, or at least show the relationship. So come here, you can view the record, and you actually can attach. Let me move this over a little bit more, but you can attach this to your family tree. So if you know for a fact that this is the right person, right, within your family tree, you can attach it to your family tree. So this is how you build it out. We're showing you my family tree right here, right? So let's go to the family tree. This is how I built it out, by attaching that record or the name Washington James to my family tree. That's how I was able to do that. So I can go back here, go back to my research, my discovery. Yep. So let me go down to 1870. Click on Washington James. View the record. Okay, let me scroll in here, click on it. I'm going to, but there it is. There it is right here. You can see on this line here in blue, Washington James. Again, I can attach these individuals to my family tree, but you know, um, Cecilia James is not my great great grandmother. Even though that was his wife, she did not give birth to Jimmy James. She had Charles James or Charlie James. But let me scroll in on the census report and show you the line. I think it's line, I remember what line it was. But let me scroll in, scroll in, scroll in, scroll in. There he is, right there. Line 4 of this on this page. Washington James, Cecilia James, Charles James. You see they're putting the lines there to saying that these individuals have the same last name as the head of the household, which is Washington James. Right? So that's how I was able to discover my family starting out with the Washington James. Um, so let me go back to search. And go back to that. Let's see, let's go to search records. And I'm gonna type his name again. Washington James. I don't know why I couldn't go back. Washington James. Search. I know where I need to go. Now let's look at the 1880 census report. And it's still the same. So this is 10 years later. 10 years later. Is that right? No, that's not right. Which one is it? That's not it. I'm sorry. Where's it? All right, here you go. Yeah, that's it. Sorry. So here it is again. That's his name. He's 52. Right? He was 43 at the time in 1870, or 42, 43. Now in 1880, he's 10 years older. There's Cecilia James, there's Charles James, right? So they're all 10 years older now. Let's see if I can find them. I leave them at the bottom of the page there. Yep, you see here, line 44, 45, and 46. Here it is. Washington James, Cecilia James, Charlie James, right? Even gives their occupation, farming. I guess as a field hand or mother in the field. I don't know, work in the field. And his son, field hand. There it is, right? Turn off. So I knew that Washington James was married. That he was not married to Martha Samuels. So it's this is about me doing research, about people doing research and knowing what they're talking about. But that individual that sent me that text made the point to say that I don't know what I'm talking about. That I can't prove that I'm a true heir to property. Really, Sean's accepted. Sean's accepted. So that means that if I'm not a true heir to property, why would I be claiming rights to land that is not mine? Or not just me, but for my mother and for my grandmother and my grandfather and their children, right? So if I can't prove that I'm a true heir to property, that means that they can't prove that they're true heirs of property. That means that we should all be questioning who are the true heirs of property. Because if individuals don't have right to land, why are they living on land? Why are they using land? That they shouldn't have rights to any land. They shouldn't have the rights to access any land, to trespass, to squat, squander, whatever case may be. They don't have rights to it. So, I mean, sorry, kind of flying here, but this is the case may be that she challenged me that I don't know what I'm talking about, that I can't prove who I am, that I'm a true heir to property. So challenge accepted. Let's go. Let's go. Let's get it done. All right. So now I want to go back to the search for records, and I'm gonna pull up one of his sons, which is my grandfather's father, right? My great grandfather, Jimmy James. Same location. I think Papa Jimmy was born in 1878. Let me see if I can locate him. Uh, Here it is in 1940. It's a 1940 census report, and he's naming his children: Jimmy James Jr., Woodrow James, Margaret James, Ruth James, Henry James, Ollie James, which is his wife. I think it's called. I think it's Baby James there. I think it's my grandfather, and his son, and Alfonso James. Hold up. Wait. Yeah. So Jimmy James, all right, and then Junior. So these two must be the youngest, but my grandfather Jake is in there somewhere. I think he's probably a baby then. But let's even go a step further to 1880. Um, Pull him up, and by this time he's actually living with. Um, is this the right report? It's not the right one. Sorry, apologies. Let me get to the right. Actually, you can see right here. This is a marriage license. A marriage license between Jimmy James, which is my great grandfather, and his wife, my great grandmother, Ollie Bell Floyd. You know, here it is. This is the marriage license, but I won't get into that. But again, it's about proving that um, I'm an heir or descendant of Washington James. So let me get to. Let me do one better. Let me go back and search for Martha Samuels to show that. Let's see, Martha Samuel. I see. Let's go to Washington Township. I think it's a better result. Need to use. Okay, here it is. So 1910. Let's even more 1900. So let's start with 19. Let's see. I think 1880. Let's go far as back as 1880 because I mean I have records of all this stuff, so I know what's on them. But 1880. Um, 1880. So here it is. Martha Samuel or Margaret Samuel was her mother. Timothy Samuel's her brother, and really these are her children. These are children. But let's pull up this census report and see. And find her on here. I think she's in the middle there. Yep, there it is. So starting with line 19, her father, his wife, her mother. There it is, Martha, daughter, right? Timothy's son. So that's her. That's her brother. Someone named Judy. Joshua's a grandson. So this is one of the children of Martha Samuels, but not the son of Washington James. And then there's Edmund James, Mary, I think it's Douglas. But Edmund James is a son of Washington James. And so let's go back to, say, 1990 report. Back again. Why doesn't go back all the way? I don't know why. Should go back to, nope, records. Sorry. Martha Samuel, Wahee Township. So let's go to 1900. And this is where that statement that I can't prove that I'm a true heir. And if Washington James, Martha Samuel had children by Washington James, that mean that we are all Samuels. To some extent, correct. And I'll show why. I'll show why here in this census report. Again, this is from 1900. Because his children, Washington James' children, and members of my family know this, that they took the name Samuel because they were in the same household as Martha Samuels, their mother. Now, Washington James was already married, right? So for one of his children, Edmund James, lived with him up until from like I say 18 after 1880 to 1900. He lived with them. So this is I'll show you. I will show you that here too. But scrolling in, you see Martha Samuels in the middle of the page there, line 68. Martha Samuel, head of the household. Judy, I think that's Tori, Jim, Jake, right? Sylvia, and Tim. There's my grandfather right there. No, sorry, right here. They're twins. I'm sorry that no, this is my great grandfather right here. Or this is my great grandfather right there, Jimmy James. So they took the name Samuel because they were living with him, but names are changed, and I'll prove to you how it was changed, and prove to you that, or show, I should say, show that that Washington James, fathered children with Martha Samuel. That he was a father of her children. So let's just see that if he's on this sister's report as well. Might be a different line. No, he's not on this one. But there is a census report with him on it from the 1900s that I know for sure. Let's go back. Let's go back to see. Make sure I get the right one here. Oh, so this is a death certificate of Martha Samuel. Right, it's goes to show that she was not married to Washington James at the time of her death. That she was single. But it will list here. Let's scroll in. I mean, Martha Samuel, right? The year that she was born, roughly, her date of death, farm hand. Let me see. Does it show that right here? Single, married, widow, or divorced? Single. So she was not married to Washington James. So essentially, she does not have rights to the property, even though that she's a mother of Washington James' children. She legally does not have any rights. And this is about tracing your lineage back to the original owners of the property. Now, if this was just a family tree to build a family tree, yes, by all means. I'm not denying that she's not the mother of Jimmy James, which is my grandfather's mother. Sorry, my grandfather's great grandmother. So I'm not denying that. I'm not denying that at all. That's not what I'm saying here. We're just basing on the true definition of who's an heir, what's an heir, especially when it comes to heir property. Like you got to trace your lineage back to original owners. So why it's important to build out your family tree to know what you're talking about, do your research. Again, that individual challenge me that I cannot prove that I'm a true heir to property, even though my family already knows, right? And they've done so. We've done so because go back and watch my videos. We're already quite a title. The title's already quiet. We put it in our family tree, and the court accepted it. It was signed, it was stamped, so it's a record that I'm a descendant of Washington James. That now I'm now part owner of this heir property, along with my mother, her siblings, her cousins, her aunts, uncles, right, which are my great aunts and uncles, the living children of Jimmy James, and as well as, let's say, the living grandchildren of Washington James. So there's Edmund Samuel, which is the father of Martha Samuels, her mother, right? Let me see here. I mean, she died in March 1915. And she's actually, I believe, I want to say she's buried on the property, but I'm not 100% sure. But um, nonetheless, there it is. Okay, let's go back now. I'm gonna look up Jimmy James. Right, I was able to find his birth certificate. So let me move this over a little bit. Go to search. Uh, this is marriage license. Where's his birth certificate? Sorry, taking this long. I should already have this done. Or, oh, here it is. Oh, sorry. It's right there in front of me. Okay. So, birth certificate. Again, it's over here. What's it say? Wash James, father. Martha Samuel, mother. That's all. There it is. Again, I was challenged, right? I was challenged, and I was shown this by my uncle, my mother's brother. That me and him went to the Florence County Library here in South Carolina and pulled this up, even though he already had this information. There it is. And this was, let's see, what year was, well, actually, what year is this? Does it say what year this was signed? (1950). November 13, 1950 was filed. Right? So how many years after his father had died that he went and got this to say that this is his parents, Jimmy James, right? There it is. The year he was born, 1888. Right? So that's why he showed up on the 1990 census report versus the 1880 census report, because he wasn't, they do this every 10 years. So Washington James, right? He was 77 at his death. He doesn't know how old his mother was, but he had to be there because she died in 1915. Again, he was born in 1888. There it is. And this is important here. This is big. Sammy Cox. If you see my family tree, you know who Sammy Cox is. If you also see my other video, you would know who Sammy Cox is. Sammy Cox is my grandmother's grandfather, right? The mother of Goldie Cox, her mother. I'm sorry, the father of Goldie Cox, right? So Simon Cox is a son of one of the children of Toby Cox. So, Simon Cox had children, one of them being Goldie Cox, and Goldie Cox had children, one of them being Hattie Brown, who then married my grandfather, James. It is. So Simon Cox is signing off that, verifying as a witness that this is true, that this is accurate. He was 72 years old of his own knowledge that the applicant was born on a date and year above, saying his street of birth. Again, 13 November 1950. And 20 some years later, in 1978, so 28 later, 20 almost he'd be 100 years old. In 1978, Papa Sim was 100 years old when he passed away, when he died. Then another witness. Edmund James is who? Washington James' firstborn child between the relationship he had with Martha Samuel. Again, here it is. There's proof. That's his brother. He was 76. So he was older than Papa Sim. He was 4 years older than Papa Sim. That's his brother. And there's his mark. Edmund James. Again, they say that I can't prove that I'm a true heir to this property. It is right there. It's right there in the nutshell. You don't have to go any further. That's in a nutshell. I've done my research. I've done my research. Unlike them, haven't done their research, and there's proof of it. Again, if you know my videos, you see my videos, you know what I'm talking about. Let me go back to. I want to go back to the PowerPoint presentation. I'm going to show you the relationship between me and um, Washington James's family, other family, Cecilia James, and his son Charles. So stay tuned. Okay, real quick, I want to show you the relationship between Martha Samuel and Washington James and his children, even his wife Cecilia James. So again, he was already married to Cecilia James, which is his wife. He had his son Charles. It doesn't show it on here, but nonetheless, this is the relationship that between the two uh, families, or him being the nucleus of the two between Cecilia James and Martha Samuels. And you see that Martha Samuels and Washington James, right? That their children, one of the children is Jimmy James, which in turn had Jake James Jr., James Sr., which is my grandfather. And there's my mother, and there's me. So again, I found all this from familysearch.org from doing my research. But granted, this is family history. Right? I first learned this from talking with, again, my late grandmother, including my mother, my uncle, aunts, cousins, who all know this stuff. Right? I was still a baby when Papa Jimmy died. But I know my grandfather. I knew of my grandfather. I knew of my mother. Um, I didn't know Papa Sam when he died, but he knew of me. He knew of my sister. I met Grandma Golda, one of his children, because I was a young boy before she died. I have fond memories of her and other members of the family. But nonetheless, so this is it. This is me doing my research and to get to the truth, to show that I know what I'm talking about, that my family are true heirs or descendants of, right, Washington James. That we are now heirs, owners of this. We're not solely, but we're part heirs, owners of this property, right? And by law, you have to prove that you were heir to property. You can't just say that you're heir to property, especially saying that you're heir to property, right? But saying, or we're cousins, we're family, we're cousins. So why can't I live on a property? Why can't I do this? Or what? You're not an heir because you're not. If you can't trace your lineage back to Washington James, who was one of the original owners of the property, along with Toby Cox and other men and women, you're not an heir. So essentially, Joshua Samuels, or Joshua Samuel, in this case, Josh Samuel, right? Even though that he was a son of Martha Samuel, he was not the son of Washington James. So he's not along that line. So he has no rights to this property, and to include other individuals. And that's for another story. I can get into that and talk about that, but I just want to, she challenged me to that I can't prove that I'm a true heir to the property. And here it is. I did it. I've done it. And my name, my mother's name, her siblings' names, her living aunts, uncles, which are my great aunts, uncles, and cousins, names are in the order identifying us as heirs to the property. So that's pretty much in a nutshell. I want to break it down and show you that I did my research. I know what I'm talking about. And if you want to find your hair, trace back your heritage, discover your lineage, discover your grandparents, your great grandparents, whatever the case may be, you can do that using familysearch.org. That's the best website I've used thus far. I mean, I have an account with ancestry.com, but it's not proven to be effective in me conducting my research. Now, I'm not discrediting you saying that. I'm discrediting you from not using ancestry.com or any other genealogy websites, but I got the best results by using familyhistory.org. And so, yeah, that's it in a nutshell. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.